When life gets unpredictable, preparation matters. In medicine, it's all about staying alert, ready for whatever comes through the door. On the road, it's no different. That's why Volvo designs vehicles to help anticipate risk, reduce harm, and protect lives. The Volvo XC90's advanced safety systems inspire confident decisions wherever the road takes you. The Volvo XC90, for life. Proud sponsor of the Pit Podcast. Learn more at volvocars.ca/safety.
You know, we talk a lot about infrastructure in the city, and mainly that news is always pretty bad, right? We've had things like pipes break, water mains, etc. But there's a new report that's out now, a new study that paints a pretty grim portrait of our water infrastructure system, specifically here in Quebec. Now, you might think that doesn't apply to anything perhaps but just infrastructure, but you have to consider that housing relies on that infrastructure. And if I read the report or part of this report right, that is very seriously affected by it and the fact that we can't build this housing because of it. Felix Rheaume is Director of Government and Public Affairs at the Construction Association of Quebec and is on the line. Monsieur Rheaume, thank you for your time this afternoon. Can you just basically fill in the blanks here on this report and why it's so dire?
Yes. Well, first, thanks for having me. And just to put a little bit of context, so this tactical group on water infrastructure, which we commended the report, from the firm that analyzes the issue of the water infrastructure in Quebec. It was created because it has become one of the biggest barriers to housing construction, but also economic development and long-term affordability in Quebec. So across Quebec, we can see that municipalities are struggling with aging drinking water, wastewater system, and they can no longer keep pace with population growth. And like you mentioned correctly, this is linked directly, and it affects the housing shortage that we are living in basically across Quebec. In almost every municipality, we see housing crisis, and we see more and more cities that have had to put a moratorium on development. They can no longer issue construction permit because they don't have the water capacity. And now we see like builders, construction, and they want to build new houses and they can't because the city just don't have the resources, the infrastructure. So this report evaluate the situation across Quebec, and also we put forward some of the solutions that we think needs to be considered by a different level of government.
Look, I'm looking at this number, which is staggering, right? It says the total bill for taxpayers, if we were going to go ahead and fix everything or as much of this as we could, exceeds $90 billion. So when you say that, municipal administrations don't have the money, this money is going to have to come from somewhere. Provincial governments doing what they can, I guess. Federal government, are we ever going to be able to solve this?
Well, we need to. We need to tackle this issue because it's been postponed for too long. At every level of government, most of the time people don't like to invest money in something that we don't see. We're talking about underground infrastructure. I like to say that it's not sexy to invest in pipes and treatment plants, but now it becomes an issue related to the housing crisis, so we need to address this issue. And it's such a big problem because we have a network of over 100,000 kilometers of water infrastructure in Quebec, and 10% of these assets are in poor or very poor condition. So they're on the verge of breaking. And you mentioned we saw already some major leaks last year in Montreal near Pont-Jacques-Cartier. This is going to occur more and more if we don't address the issue right now, if we don't invest the money. And there's different options how to finance these infrastructure, but mostly it needs to come from the higher level of government, so transfer from Ottawa to Quebec, and then from the Quebec government to the municipalities, because the cities are the ones stuck with the problem right now, and they absolutely don't have the financial capacity to make all the investment that's needed. You mentioned $90 billion just for the more urgent work. It's $40 billion in the next coming years. That is money that right now we don't have, so we need to think outside the box and find some solutions.
Yeah, I'd love to know what those solutions are, but at the same time, if it's a matter of that much money, that's a staggering amount of money. If it's a matter of doing what's most important first, what would that be?
Well, in terms of solution, you mean?
Yeah, we know this is a problem. We know there's an increased need for housing, and this is part of it. You can't build the housing without the infrastructure. Where should that money first start going?
Well, There's a few solutions that we put forward. We talked about the possibility of implementing a water meter. This is one of the solutions that's already in place in a few municipalities. Repentigny has been one of the first to implement it. And we've seen in the city of Repentigny that despite an increase in the population of the city of 18%, their water consumption has remained stable over the last 20 years. So almost 20% more people and no change in the consumption. So the implementation of water meter has a direct effect on to limit the consumption in the population. And Quebec is one of the worst in terms of the quantity, the water consumer in Canada. We're actually the second worst after Newfoundland. So
what does that mean?
Well, it means that we consume too much water. It means that we're not careful about the use we make, and that when you implement some solution such as water meter, that what we've seen in Repentigny is that people are more concerned and they consume less water. So this put less pressure on municipal system, and in the long term, it will require less investment if we are more careful about our consumption.
You also know, of course, that when you bring up the idea of water meters, I would imagine my text board is going to start lighting up pretty soon. People go, great, another tax. No one likes that idea, and obviously that's tough for a city, perhaps, as a whole, to even consider doing, because everybody would hate that idea. But is that inevitably where you think this is the only way to begin solving the situation?
And I totally feel you, because we're all paying a lot of taxes, and we don't want to see more on our tax account. But the idea is that by putting this water meter, you pay it's the user payer principle.
Right.
So you pay for what you use, and in the same time, the municipality could lower their other kind of taxes that they collect from the citizen. So it's not only about raising the amount of taxes, but it's in order the citizen to be more aware of their consumption, and at the end of the day to consume less water and to reduce the pressure on municipal infrastructure.
As you say this, I think to myself, when you talk about people wasting water, that would have never entered my mind before. So what is that? Just people let the water run, or how are people wasting water exactly?
Let the water run, washing their driveway with water when the summer is coming. We're just not enough aware of this precious resource. We have the chance in Quebec to have a lot of water, but we're not careful enough. So we need to think about this.
Okay.
So this is one way to consume less, but it doesn't change the fact that we're going to need to invest a lot of money. I talked about the water meter, but it's only one part of the solution. The other part is like the transfer from Ottawa to Quebec and to Quebec to the city needs to be much more important, but also much faster. I'll give you just an example. In the last 2 years, we waited 2 years for a $1 billion transfer from Ottawa to Quebec regarding the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund. So it took 2 years to transfer money that was already secure, planned for Quebec, but they needed to negotiate the transfer. And in that time, we lost we lost money and we lost time to invest directly in the municipality where the needs are.
I wonder too, you've studied this. Are there other jurisdictions doing this already, this idea of water meter? Because the idea is not new. Any place else doing this, even in the rest of Canada, besides where you just mentioned, in Repentigny?
Yeah, I don't have the example, but we've looked at the other jurisdiction. It's something that is much more frequent than we have here in Quebec. So that's also where we got the inspiration to propose that. And we see that the results are similar to what I've explained in Repentigny. We see a direct correlation between the implementation of water meter and the diminution of the water consumption.
By the way, if they were going to install water meters like hydrometers, for example, I mean, there's obviously a cost to doing that as well, right? But in the end, you're saying that would outweigh the cost, just the money we would save by people actually realizing they're just wasting water. Once you have to start paying for it, maybe you stop wasting it less.
Yeah, exactly. On the long term, it will definitely be beneficial. Like I said, and I insist on that, it's not about putting more taxes on the citizen. It's really not the objective. We're already paying a lot of money, but it's really in order to limit the consumption of water, be more aware.
Yeah.
And come back to the key element behind all this report. It's in order to build more houses. So the link right now is that we cannot build because of the lack of infrastructure, the water infrastructure. And last year, only these limitations delayed or prevented the construction of about 36,000 housing units. So we're in a dire crisis right now. We need to build more houses, and we are stuck because of this issue. And right now, the government predict that we're going to build less houses in the coming year than we built last year. So not only we're not going in the good direction, we're going to build less than what we already have. So it's a very big problem.
It is indeed.
And I don't see right now a global plan at the government of Quebec to tackle the issue of the housing crisis.
Mr. Rheaume, we got to leave it at that. I thank you so much for the time. Very interesting. Appreciate it today. Thank you.
Hey, thanks to you.
All right. Wow. Imagine that going to build less houses now. That need is so great just because of this infrastructure issue.
Experience Bruno Mars live in Toronto.
Guess who's back again?
iHeartRadio wants to send you and a friend with flights from tripcentral.ca. 2 nights at Sheraton Centre Toronto. Tickets to Bruno Mars and $1,000 cash.
Don't believe me, just watch.
Download the free iHeartRadio app. Listen to iHeart New Music for 10 minutes.
I'm coming to get you.
Win your way to Bruno Mars.
Will you be there? Oh, I just might.
Every day you listen is another chance to win.